Hello everybody, welcome back to ESPN's Football Forecast. My name is James Allcott. We're going to be talking about all sorts, but Champions League in particular and AC Milan versus Spurs. Joining me, Nubaid, Haroon, Kweku, Afari. Right, let's dive into this. Because, I was thinking about it and, Nubaid, you're a Liverpool fan, slightly forlorn. Kweku, you're a Chelsea fan, slightly forlorn. And I'm a QPR fan, slightly forlorn. And we're about to talk about AC Milan versus Spurs, which are two teams that are incredibly forlorn. This is a tough one of the round of 16. As excited as I am that the Champions League is back, this one feels like it could be a bit of a slog. Is there any way you can convince me otherwise?
I mean, it might be a classic of two really poor sides that just go hammer and tong.
Head to head, yeah.
But I don't think it's going to be that either, unfortunately. I think both these sides come into this game in terrible form. But it's not just form, it's also they just look disjointed. It's not a case of they're playing the right type of football, AC Milan and Spurs, and they're just getting bad results. Both teams actually can't play football at the moment. So it might be one of those where I'll probably switch that off and watch a Championship or League One or League Two that day, or watch a bit of Northern Premier, because I don't know if the quality is going to be quite there. But I do think in this fixture, AC Milan are probably going, we're at home, we're taking on a Spurs side that just lost 4-1 to Leicester, and in wide areas AC Milan are still okay. That's the only silver lining we probably can look forward to.
Well, so obviously the run before the Torino victory at the weekend was really, really bad. And actually, look, when you sort of dive into AC Milan as a team, it feels like the real problem when it comes to the injuries is Tomori. To not have Tomori in that team, it totally changes the formation, the shape, how high the line would be. I'm surprised. I know Tomori's great, but he really is a linchpin for how they want to play. And so with the three at the back, that's more likely because he's not going to be in the side. Does that play into Tottenham's hands a little bit? Just because there's going to be that space in behind which would have helped them, but they're actually going to kind of be quite similar. Both teams won't really want to sort of concede too much space in behind them, will they?
Yeah, well, injuries is going to be the tail of the tape for this tie. Spurs are hit with the injury bug. Bentancur is out for the season, which is a huge, huge blow for them. And like you say, Tomori, how important he is to this AC Milan side, it was evident last season on their run to win the title, and it's been very, very evident in his absence this season. Like you say, that 7-game winless run completely out of the title race. Like, that's out of the question for an AC Milan side who were the best team in Italy last season. And beating Torino, they go into this game with a little bit more confidence than Spurs, who were absolutely battered by Leicester. It's going to be interesting to see who copes with the injuries more better. I think Spurs have got more players that can hurt AC Milan. Obviously, we know about the exploits of Harry Kane, and I think the Champions League for Heung-min Son will be a bit of respite. He's not been great in the league this season, and I think Champions League football suits him, and like I said, there's going to be space to exploit for him. So I think Spurs should be slight favourites going into this one, but both teams are pretty poor this season.
It's difficult when we talk about Tottenham. What's the truth here? I think we're going to find out actually in the next couple of weeks, or certainly between now and the end of the season, in terms of how influential Bentancur is for this team. Because a week ago, 3 or 4 days ago, I was chatting to a Tottenham fan, and he was saying that, no, we're right now, we're full strength. And then that happens. And not only that happens, look, he played for the bulk of that game at 60-odd minutes against Leicester City. And the two in midfield, it does feel like something that just can be exploited by the right team. And in particular, Leicester City, in the sort of half spaces, we don't want to make this about Leicester City, but what AC Milan are able to do, even with this three at the back, is get the ball to those midfield runners and drive with the ball. Is that something you think that Tottenham are going to struggle with? And if so, do they need to chuck another player in that midfield?
Well, I think we've been sort of going round and round with this idea of Spurs playing with an extra midfielder all season. But I think when Bentancur plays, they have someone who can receive the ball on the half turn. When he's not there, they essentially give the ball into whoever's playing in midfield, whether it's Hojbjerg, whether it's Bissouma, who's been a shadow of the player we thought he was going to be, and they just pop it back to the centre-backs, and none of that back three can actually play between the lines or play passes that are diagonals that get Spurs moving. On the flip side, as you say, AC Milan with Sandro Tonali in there, you get the ball into him and he can make the game happen. And then they've also got Bentancur, who's actually injured for the last game. But I think if them two are fit, they're actually all right in midfield. The problem for AC Milan, as you just touched on there, is those wide areas without Tonali, because they're not used to playing a back three. And so I think
Tomori, you mean, don't you?
Yeah, Tomori. With that back three, they don't have Tomori in there at the moment, and so you can sort of flip the ball in behind those wide centre-backs. And Simone Kjaer, as good as a A tree, he is. I like him to a tree. You want to keep him in that same position. He doesn't want to go wide, and the moment he's wide, they're in trouble. Although the other thing is, you have to look at Spurs and say Son's so out of form. Kulusevski, they're still relying on him so much. Richarlison, I don't think he scored a goal in the league this season.
So is there a big call to be made here? If Tottenham were to go to a 3-5-2, which is something that, you've got Porro, you've got Perisic, you've got a bit of a problem in midfield there, but you also then only really have two up top, and you would imagine that two up top would be Heung-min Son and Kane. But again, is there then a big call to be made? Because again, how do you get Kulusevski in? How do you get Richarlison? Do you want to get Richarlison in? Yeah. Do you think that would be which one's the biggest risk? Is it one where you just got to you've got to sort out that midfield area, or do you need to kind of rinse and repeat and hope you can get away with it?
The midfield area is the biggest question mark for Spurs, because we've seen them get exposed in big games when they've gone with that, especially against the top teams in the Premier League, when they've got that two in midfield. They just haven't got, I don't know what it is, if it's the legs or the ability to get in and around, but they get exposed. And like you said, the half space that Leicester are picking up, Leicester could have scored so many goals, and they had so much time on the ball. And the fact that Bissouma's out, the fact that Bentancur's out, it's a big problem for Spurs. And I think that's been the issue since Antonio Conte has come in. He's managed to find a tune and get the best out of Harry Kane, who does what Harry Kane does. Son's struggling. Like I said, they're over-relying on Kulusevski. I think the midfield is what they need to sort out, because I think going forward, Spurs have got enough to hurt this AC Milan side.
I'd like to see 4-3-3, personally.
He's never going to do it.
He's never going to do it, though.
He's just never going to do it.
And that's where I start to look at it and I kind of go, what squad are you building here?
Yeah.
Because, you've got Maddison playing against them at the weekend. Absolutely fantastic. He's been fantastic all season. And it is a player that they're kind of screaming out for. And if they were to play 4-3-3, that would allow you to have Kulusevski, but allow you to have three in midfield. But then I guess you've got your two centre-backs who've got to kind of get on with it a little bit.
If you're in a back three, people always say back three tax. They've got the opposite. They're like getting taxed more because they're in a back three. So I don't feel like if you put them in a pair, it's going to work. I think, as you said, you have to lose one of your forwards. And I don't think Kulusevski can play in a pair up front. He has actually at Parma, to be fair to him. But I think you've got to go with Son and Kane. Son's brilliant in transition. I think you say to AC Milan, you have the ball.
So you're saying don't play Kulusevski in this game?
Yeah.
Wow.
If only because I think they've got to try and win the midfield battle. They lose the midfield battle and they're going to have to support Porro or whoever plays that right centre-back. I think Romero should be fine because he's suspended for the last league game. You've got to stop Rafael Leao because he's the only outlet AC Milan have. And if you can keep him relatively quiet, then you've got to win the battle in midfield. And that's where you need an extra body in there. Because they struggle, as you said, in big games, they struggle so badly in midfield against Arsenal, against City. They should, in essence, go AC Milan have the ball, and AC Milan don't mind having the ball, and we're just going to try and hit you on the counter-attack. And that is Conte's method in big games.
I think you have to pay Kulusevski in this game. That's why, again, I do come back to the 4-3-3, because I wonder if you play Ben Davies as part of that. He just shook his head. Yeah. There's a way there where you kind of still have a bit of a three, and you can still get Kulusevski in the team, because the way that what's going to happen in this game is that the way AC Milan are going to play, they're going to play the ball long to Giroud. They're going to have Rafael with him. They're going to look to counter-attack. Yeah. But if both teams are doing that and both waiting for it, then there's all this space in the middle. There's an opportunity there.
No, you cannot afford for one of your fullbacks, depends on what fullback Leao picks on, to be isolated with Rafael Leao. I know he's not been in amazing form in recent weeks. He's not been the Leao of the beginning half of the season, but he's still lethal, and you can't afford, if you're Ben Davies, to be isolated. And Eric Dyer is in dire form. Their centre-backs aren't good enough, their full-backs aren't good enough, the defence is not good enough to be playing forward at the back.
Also, I think in a back four, he's going to have to play Pedro Porro, Emerson Royal. And Emerson Royal can have the occasional wonderful game like he did against City. But if Rafael Leao takes you on once in the first 10 minutes, it's game over, because he feasts on that. And Pedro Porro's not a right back.
Well, see, this is the funny, again, with the building of the squad. Porro, if you're going to go for it and have some fun and you're going to be positive, but that's not really Tottenham. So let's get to how the game's going to be won or lost. Who are going to be the key people here, and how's this going to get finished?
I think for AC Milan going forward, we've talked about him already. Leao is very, very important. He needs to kind of show the form that he did at the beginning of the season. Olivier Giroud is a man well versed in European football. I remember Chelsea going on that European run, and Giroud scored some important goals. One of them being that overhead kick against Atletico Madrid, and he's just a striker. He's evergreen, and we saw how good he was at the World Cup. And I feel like if AC Milan are going to do anything to Spurs, he's going to have a big game to play. And for Spurs, we know who it is. It's Harry Kane. It falls to the boots of Harry Kane. He's, in my opinion, the best striker along with Erling Haaland in English football, and he just does everything for Spurs, whether it's dropping deep and finding men. He's one of the best passers in world football. He's incredible, and for Spurs to really affect what AC Milan do, Harry Kane's going to have game.
Just
Go
have to stop the ball getting into Kane, which I think actually when you have a midfield of Bentancur and Tonali, you'll be able to do that. And then I think Spurs are like, what do we do? And that's where I look at Conte and go, you got to do something at some point, because you can't keep relying on what is essentially Jose Mourinho's Tottenham, just with a different manager who's got a gallbladder issue. That's it.
Okay, right. Let's get a prediction then on this one. Lots been said, not a lot of it positive, but we're nearly there, guys. Hang in there. Yeah, who's going to win? Who's going to go through? Nubaid.
I have to back AC Milan. I think they are in horrible form, but their home record actually isn't terrible. I think they've lost 1 in 6 at home in the league. So I back them to go through, and I back them to win this game 2-0.
Tough one. At the beginning of the season, I did say I fancy Spurs to go on a little bit of a European run, just because they had attackers. Son's been different this season, but they had attackers who can put the ball in the back of the net, and Conte traditionally has been a very, very good defensive manager. But it's been a different Spurs side, and that result against Leicester really put me off of them. But I'm going to pick Spurs, though. I'm going to pick a 2-1 Spurs win for them to go through over 2 legs.
I actually think Spurs will just about nick it. I think it will be turgid, but I think they will live in that space quite happily, bizarrely. And I also think that when they play woefully, you do get a little bit of a reaction from them most of the time. And part of the problem against Leicester City was just there wasn't that tenacity. They was dropping deep so often and leaving space. I don't think they'll do that against AC Milan. They may well lose the first leg, but I think they'll just about get over the line. Guys, let's know how you're feeling about this one in the comments down below.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.